Meditation is a gradual awakening from the deep slumber of many lives. We are waking up slowly. It's not something that happens in a second. The awakening takes several months, years, lives to come to the state of full awareness, which ultimately becomes our abode for permanent time. The waking up does not happen instantaneously. It's a continuous struggle between materialism and the spirituality. We want to function in the world. And functioning is not a problem. The problem comes in when we want to change people, change ourselves. For this change, our ego comes into the picture. And this ego wants to be satisfied. And when the ego takes over, that means the material world is alive for us. To create a change, ego is absolutely needed. Ego is nothing but a firm belief in the material world, and a belief that ego is required to change things. When the ego is alive, the consciousness cannot function. Because consciousness works through you, but without having a connection with the higher consciousness, ego will work for its own benefit and not the world or the universe. But consciousness has to work for the world. Consciousness ultimately balances everything so that everybody benefits. But ego is centric. It just thinks of itself and nothing else. So automatically, when someone thinks of one's self, the other people become non-self. And the divisions are created, frictions start. And in these frictions, our mind remains occupied all the time in a perpetual state of suffering. This suffering has to be known as suffering. Then only progress towards spirituality is possible. If someone is born in the middle of war, and for argument's sake, a war that's going to last a lifetime, that person will remain in a warful mode 24/7 till he dies, trying to win over the enemies. We all are like that. We are in war with the rest of the world all the time, for which we have to continuously create ideas about protecting us and our existence and destroying others and their existence. This continuous state of struggle is all we know. So for that, meditation is required. Meditation is not necessary at all. You can live life like you have been living and die like that. You have your dreams. You're gonna live in the dreams and you're gonna die in the dreams. Again waking up in the next life to see the dreams again. Awakening is not for you. So meditation is a process to awaken yourself to the warlike state that you have been living in. Continuous friction, continuous suffering, continuously defending yourself, and continuously become offensive towards others. This is the state of everybody nowadays. Unless you meditate and you walk away from all these things. And reach to the inner state of consciousness where the friction is not possible because there is no duality. There is a unity, a singularity which covers everything. Since there are no divisions, there are no frictions, there are no sufferings. So when you experience this peace, you realize your everyday state of the mind, which is full of struggle and suffering. So the first thing one has to realize that there is dukkha, there is suffering in life. Until one realizes a spiritual progress is not possible. And the another thing we have to realize that this suffering is our choice, based on and dictated by our ego. We have gone into the war with the others, with the nature, with your neighbors, with your friends, with your enemies. You are continuously in struggle. It has been our choice. And it's not easy to come out of something that you have created and you have been fighting. It's not easy to lay down the swords, lay down the shields, lay down the armors, and become a free man. Your ego has equipped you to fight with the world, to gain things. Even when somebody tells you that there is peace somewhere else, and peace is enjoyable. In this warful state, it becomes impossible for you to think of peace. Ego makes you believe that war is necessary to bring the peace. And under that spell, you keep on fighting. Fight with your spouse. Fight with your enemies. Fight with your boss. Fight with your employees. Fight with the world. Fight with nature. Fight never ends. So, one thing we have to realize, that this fight is not the only thing that we can do in life. We can be at peace. We can be in a joyous state. For this, we have to start the spiritual journey of awakening. Until then, you were slipping under the spell of Maya, ego. But awakening does not happen overnight. Few days back, somebody made a comment about me which was false. But the person got the joy out of it. The comment came as a surprise, so I had no way of responding. After the situation was over, I kept on mulling about it. Why that person said that, and what could I have said? I had no doubt about myself, but I wanted to shut that person out. And I kept on thinking of the ways to do that. Next time the person comes around, my mind remained occupied off and on for 2-3 days. Then suddenly, listening to the spiritual talks by Osho and listening to one thing that woke me up again. I was sleeping for those 2-3 days and suddenly woke up when the Osho said that all our links that we have created are the chains which are binding us to the sansar, to the society. And it's our bondages, it's our iron chains that we have connected ourselves with the sansar. And since we cannot give those chains up, we are suffering. So suddenly, I snapped out of the spell of the Maya. And through meditation, came back to the peaceful state of existence where responses are not required. Normally, if something happens and we respond, that's a common reaction, which also means that we believe samsara is real. But it's not. It's continuously changing. Temporarily, you may feel good that you could respond and won the fight. But whatever you have gained also is not going to last. It's again going to be a perpetual battle of one person responding, then another person responding, and back and forth will go on. Meanwhile, you lose your precious time with a joyful state of consciousness where you can rest peacefully and joyously, where the attacks or the weapons of the other people in the society cannot reach. You are in a totally peaceful state. I had made a mistake of walking away from that state and decided to respond. I never responded, but now I realize I lost 2 to 3 days of peace and quietude of my inner consciousness. So waking up is not an instantaneous process. Right now, we are identified with the body and the mind and the war that's going around in the world all the time. Once we identify ourselves with the inner consciousness, the awakening starts, because it is over and beyond the world itself, beyond the matter itself. But this awakening takes time. Just like when you are waking up in the morning You are still in a twilight zone. You're still remembering the dreams, and you're trying to come to the reality. Same way, process will be slow, but with the continued practice, it will become steady, and ultimately you reach to the reality. Even after you see the reality, holding on to the reality is going to be tough, going back and forth. That's why we need the perseverance and continuous steady progress and a belief in our own self and the soul. That's when the progress will continue. So now, from the pedestal of the consciousness, I reflect back to my 2-3 days when I was upset with that person. Now I thank that person to make me realize what were my weaknesses, where my ego was still hiding, which got hurt and wanted to respond. And now I would rather have that situation more in life, and I do not respond. That will be my victory of the spirit over the mind. We try to change ourselves. We try to change others. Trying to change anything does not work. Changing the world does not work. It requires a lot of efforts, energy, and loss of peace of mind. And even then, people don't change. And we try to change ourselves also. But even that concept is not good, because changing ourselves should be an end result of realizing the full consciousness. Once you come in contact with infinite, steady, perpetually shashvat, undying consciousness, then only you start realizing the flimsiness of the ego, of the fights, of the wars. That's when you start walking away from these things. You intensify and condense your own inner consciousness, and that becomes your permanent truth. So even changing ourselves is also a fallacy. If you say that I'm trying to change myself from material to spiritual, even that is a wrong approach. Meditation is all about not doing anything. By not doing anything, you will bump into the inner infinite consciousness. You just enjoy your existence, and that experience of enjoyment itself will be the guide, and that will change you, because you are not there to change yourself. The consciousness will be changing you. So that way, meditation is a totally effortless method where you can gradually slip into full awareness, and then only your day-to-day life will look like ignorance, darkness, and a spell of Maya. Have a good day.